And welcome to the Sean Chandler Podcast, a place to talk movies and nerdy stuff way too much. Today I am joined by two different guests. First up, Griffin Schiller. Nice to have you back.
What's going on? Good to be here. It's been a while since we've done this podcast.
Yes.
It's like we're talking years, man. We're talking years, and so it's
Just casually bringing it back. No announcements. Hey Griffin, want to join me tomorrow? Oh, by the way, first episode. What, two and a half years, whatever it's been.
Yeah.
But we are joined by one more person with us today. We've got Richard from The Direct. How's it going?
Guys, thank you so much. I've never obviously been on this show before, but I have been such a huge fan of yours, Sean, for going on like 5-6 years now. I've watched this channel for so long, and I got to meet you in February, which is awesome. I know you're going to get into that story here pretty soon, but I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited.
That's the fun thing about the way sometimes life plays out. So the history of how this batch of three people came together back in February, Griffin texted me on a random day. He says, hey man, there's like this John Campea Real Reject show with Christian Harloff where they're going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think maybe you should come out for this. And it was on a bad weekend where I was doing a Comic-Con in Portland and it didn't make any sense. And I was like, I think I'm going to do that. And I just did it kind of on a whim. And I had a friend traveling with me. And then we showed up. And I'm seated right next to Richard. And we know we've been following each other on Twitter for a while. And we're just sitting there where we start looking at each other like doing this number right here. And so then we met. And then over the last several days, we've gotten a bunch of Deadpool updates, set photos. Internet was going wild. And immediately, three wildly different responses between the three of us. So you are like seeing it, and you are the voice of everyone that is just like pumped for it. And then which way is Griffin? It's reversing. It's confusing me. Griffin over here is like the person that's like, oh man, what are we doing here? And has a lot of concerns. And I'm the middle guy. Like, I can see some positives and negatives in all of this. I see both of your perspectives, and I thought that's a good conversation to have. Three people that see these headlines, these set photos, and feel very differently about it. And as while we're here, we might as well talk about a bunch of other movie news. So those of you that are watching live or on the replays, you can look down below in the description for the topics that we're looking to discuss over the next 45 minutes. But the first topic of discussion today is that this week we got set photos of Hugh Jackman in the yellow suit. And it is full blown, the classic suit that people have wanted forever. And first they put out a picture and it was the two of them standing next to each other. And then over the next 2 days, it went from that to now we have videos of the two of them. And then there's ones with the claws, ones with all of these different things. And between the three of us, I think we had very different feelings about it. Richard, I feel like you speak for the masses, especially the main voice on Twitter. So why are you excited about this?
I mean, well, as you can tell clearly from looking at me, I am a huge Deadpool fan. I've got the Deadpool shirt. I'm sitting in a Deadpool chair, and I have a Deadpool drinking straw for my glass of water. So I'm a huge Deadpool fan. I love the first two movies. And when Marvel got the rights to do Deadpool, I was really excited, obviously, just because you get Ryan Reynolds in the MCU as Deadpool. And I think these set photos, for me personally, I know Marvel, we all know that Marvel has had issues over the last few years that have really divided people on the movies, whether it's Ant-Man or Thor or just the general CGI of it all and everything. But I think what's exciting me the most about Deadpool is that we get so much of the classic X-Men stuff that we've always wanted to see in the X-Men movies, but we haven't gotten until now. We've gotten, the thing with me too is, especially with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, we've gotten so many different versions of him. We've gotten the grunty, the grueling, terrifying version of him in Logan. That's one of the most revered comic book movies of all time. And that was amazing. And we got the comic booky X-Men stuff sort of in the original trilogy with the leather suits and everything. but we've never seen him before in this suit, the one that everybody's known from the comics and from the animated vibes. I can already hear the X-Men animated theme going in my head, the way they did in Doctor Strange 2 and Miss Marvel. And I think that more than anything in a Deadpool movie I think it's the perfect avenue to bring Hugh Jackman back. And I think the thing too is that this isn't like Hugh Jackman's going to be around the MCU for a long time. I'm betting this is like probably a 2-picture deal at most, this and Secret Wars. So we get the classic like Wolverine X-Men that everybody's wanted for a long time. We have a lot of fun with it. He gets to curse his heart out and, you know, chop off some of Deadpool's limbs. And I just think it's going to be a really fun time, personally. Like, that's the kind of humor I love. That's the kind of movie I enjoy. And I know that it doesn't look perfect, but it is only one scene. Yeah. So I'm staying optimistic. I'm really looking forward to this movie. I can't wait to see it out.
If you can give me the 2-3 sentence answer to this, but the other thing that we've gotten over the last few weeks is confirmation of Jennifer Garner coming back as Elektra and some of these other Fox cameos. They're obviously doing Multiverse. We've seen photos of the Fox logo. So there's clearly something going on. It's going meta. It's going very cameo heavy. What's your 2-3 sentence reaction to that?
It's Deadpool. That's what Deadpool, I think, is all about. He is the fourth wall breaking crazy man of the MCU. And it's Deadpool kills the Fox universe, I think. And I think that's the story we're leaning towards. I think that's going to be part of the movie, obviously, with the TVA stuff involved. But I think it's going to be a fun part of it.
So, Griffin, you have different feelings. And you've had concerns since they first said Hugh Jackman's coming back. Yeah. And then they start referencing all these cameos. And then we see this bright yellow suit. Griffin, give us the counterpoint.
Yeah, I mean, literally as soon as the project was announced and like, I wasn't against the idea of a Deadpool 3. I was just, I just don't really care for the direction they've taken this. And so like when it was announced that Hugh Jackman was coming back to play Wolverine again, I was pretty off-put by the whole thing because it's just kind of upending the end of his character with Logan. He let the character rest, his tenure on that. Whatever you make of it, obviously it was kind of like he had one good movie, had one disastrous movie, whatever. Which is putting it generally, like it was a tumultuous tenure for him as the character, but he was always consistently good, and so like. While, yeah, it would have been cool to like see him have a better, more consistent tenure, the character was laid to rest in Logan, which is, I think, one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. And I think James Mangold kind of like he really did a beautiful, soulful conclusion to that character. And so when you're gonna kind of undo that for the sake of a Deadpool movie, it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I got really cynical about the whole thing. And because like I think you can do a Deadpool 3 with Wolverine, but have it be the new guy, and then just like whoever you were going to bring into the role, and then kind of like riff on that, like how it's like he's different. Like it almost feels like too easy. Like why wouldn't you have gone that way instead of like just defiling the grave of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine for the sake of money? So it's like it's just
strong words.
It's just one of those things. It's just like wait, like I feel like we're like fandom is at a place where they just don't want to let things end. They don't want to see their heroes get older. They don't want to see their heroes die. They don't want to let them like evolve as people. They're treated in this weird mythic sense, I guess. And so yeah, okay, so Hugh Jackman's coming back, and I was like, all right. So Hugh Jackman's coming back. It's probably going to be littered with cameos. It's probably going to like be some attempt to lampshade the multiverse thing, and that's literally
what's confirmed.
Yeah, and that's basically what we're getting. And I just like I think that is so lame. It's such a just like I don't know. It's just a cheap way to use this character in that section of the universe, and it's just like really like the best you could think of is to just like bring back everything that was ever created under the Fox umbrella for superheroes and just like make fun of it and just be like, oh yeah, look at them with like the biker suits and everything. Isn't that stupid? We're gonna make it yellow this time. And it's just, I don't know, dude. Like I think that's what bothers me about Deadpool. Like as like a character in general, I really like that first movie. I think that first movie actually has like a lot of like wit and charm to it. It's kind of grated on me over the years just because I think like once you've heard the jokes a million times, like with most comedies, it loses its effect. I really didn't like the second one. I thought the second one was a big step backwards, and it was like everything I hated about the Deadpool character. And like this one, I'm just sort of like, oh man. And on top of that, they're making this movie during a writer's strike. Like part of like even if you don't like the previous two Deadpool movies, part of why that works is because Ryan Reynolds like just makes shit up on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're like that is like the inherent appeal of this is getting to see
but they said he can put the mask on in
Right.
ADR in post.
right, because that's
Which
gonna
is
go
kind of an interesting
really
kind of
well. Yeah, that's gonna go really well. It's just like so how are you gonna fix Hugh Jackman's parts then? His scenes. Is his stuff gonna be concrete or is it
Keep showing the back of his head.
Yeah,
they,
dude.
They make references to the fact that there was a strike, and so they keep cutting to the
I
back
know.
of his head and do
Well,
ADR riffing.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
They do reshoots for every single MCU movie, anyways. So I mean, I God knows I don't know how long this writer's strike is going to go on. Fingers crossed, it's not as bad.
Right. I don't know. I guess it's like one of those things. And then I see the pictures of like Hugh Jackman coming back in the yellow suit, and I assumed they were probably gonna have him be in a yellow suit. And like I know what they're doing. They're like, oh look, we're gonna give you the comic accurate iconography, and it's gonna make you forget how cynical this whole thing is, because that's kind of like Ryan Reynolds' brand of thing. And it's just. Like it's cool. Like I don't hate the look of the suit. The suit looks fine. I just like Hugh Jackman in a yellow suit isn't enough to get me excited for the prospect of this movie. Like it's a cool like little visual gimmick, but it's like, is that enough to warrant like bringing him back and like ending and you know upending the beautiful swan song that they had with Logan? I don't really think so. And I know a lot of people have been giving James Mangold shit because he voiced that he didn't really like the fact that they're bringing Hugh Jackman's version of the character back. He was like, you know, I just find it to be a little like sad that we couldn't let this character go out the way he did. And everyone's just sort of like, oh, the coming from the guy who's like resurrecting Indiana Jones. And I'm like, no. That's a very different thing. Yeah. Like that movie was spearheaded by Harrison Ford, first of all, who wanted to tell a very, you know, specific story that brought a conclusion to that character's arc. He wasn't digging up like a hero from the grave who was like already, you know, their time has already been put to rest. I think I'd be more down with like the iconography and everything if this was a new version of that character, of Wolverine and everything, but it's not. And so it's just sort of like there's a weird sort of disconnect there, because that everything they're sort of playing with Hugh Jackman's, you know, with at least from like the set photos and everything that we're seeing and the direction this film seems to be going in, that's not his version of Logan. And I feel like they're trying to make him play a different version of the character. And it's just, I don't know. Like they really should have just recast that role. And if they wanted to do like Deadpool versus Wolverine, do it that way and do it as like a buddy road trip or something like that. Yeah.
All right. Let me step in as the middle spot. So, and I think it's good that like, the reason people are excited about this movie, I think we know what that is. Like, right, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman as two people, they're really fun to watch on Instagram and Twitter, riff on each other. Clearly they have good chemistry. They play off each other well. And we never got to see that prior to Hugh Jackman retiring from the role. And they were already kind of like landing the Wolverine ship while Deadpool was taking off, and then it became like, oh crap, we have two actors that have great energy with each other, and we have created the scenario where we can't do them together. And you jump forward and you start getting into this world where, oh, people love multiverse movies. We're in this era right now where so much of all of our franchises is about, let's remind us of the past and let's pull in our past heroes and pull them together. And so immediately the most obvious one that comes to mind is Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, of like, wouldn't it be cool if we got to see that? Because they're so fun on the internet. superficially, of course I'm excited about that. Like, I want to see what they're going to do. Of course, superficially, those scenes are going to be a lot of fun. Like, I'm not worried. Like, will it be funny? Will it make me laugh? Of course it will. Ryan Reynolds is hilarious, and Hugh Jackman plays great off of him. And is it fun to see the yellow suit? Of course it is superficially. And like the idea of like, oh, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool dunking on the Fox universe. Of course that's kind of fun. Like all of those things.
Oh, I have thoughts about that.
We'll loop back to that in just a second.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they ended. They had a fantastic finale. Everyone agrees Logan was a great conclusion to the character. And as soon as some of us voiced like, wait a minute, we're bringing Hugh Jackman back, but we had a great finale. What are we doing here? They're like, well, in the timeline, Logan is 10 years in the future, and we can go multiverse. He can be a variant. Here's all these ways that we could do it, and it doesn't undo the ending. Like, there's the how do you do it in canon that doesn't undo the canon ending, and then there's the emotional release of he played the character for nearly 20 years. And he said, this is my last time, and I want to end on a high note. And he did. They pulled it off. It was so satisfying, and everyone agreed, thematically, story-wise, character-wise, this was the right way to end it. And then they're undoing it so that we can go, hey, look, it's Elektra. Hey, look, they're fighting in front of the Fox logo. And you see that stuff, and superficially, it's really cool. And that's why I'm kind of torn, because it's like, will I have fun with that? Is there some sort of like element to that like I like? Yeah. At the flip side, does it feel like we're doing something really cheap? Undoing something great to do something cheap. All right, Richard, that way. You're that way, Richard. So we've been dunking on it a little bit. As the person that's excited, kind of what's your reaction to our concerns?
It's funny. I understand it, and here's what I'm thinking too. We saw how it didn't work in The Flash. I will 100% admit that like
I love The Flash.
I do too.
But so that's what's funny about that's what's amazing of like
that's so funny
like
because
we watched The Flash and we went, oh man, what a great way to do multiverse. And you watch The Flash and you're like, oh, not a great way to do the multiverse. Yeah. And we're like concerned about Logan and Wolverine coming back. And you're like, that's what's great about this is that we're actually
that's so funny.
So anyway, back to us convincing you The Flash is awesome. What were you saying?
I will not dunk on The Flash. If you guys enjoyed it, that is awesome. Great for you. I'll leave it at that. But and here's the thing with me too. I think with Deadpool, I think for me, because I'm personally, maybe it's just me it's definitely just me on the panel. I'm a big fan of like that meta humor and that stuff like that, the fourth wall breaking, all the out real world references and stuff like that. I find that stuff to be hilarious most of the time. I completely understand your guys' concern. I agree with you that Logan is arguably the greatest comic book movie ever. Like, it's in the conversation at the very least, and Hugh Jackman put forth like a performance for the ages. And I obviously I don't want that undone because Hugh Jackman was amazing. But I think this is just a chance to give folks, and like you said, like you were saying, Sean, we never got to see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman really as Deadpool and Wolverine, because the Deadpool and Wolverine we got was Wolverine origin.
Right.
And
I guess that's right. We did see them together. Technically they did. Not what anybody actually wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, Hugh Jackman was Wolverine, but Ryan Reynolds was like
whatever that was
Wade B. Wilson. That's not the only way I can put it, with the crazy weird sword thing. I mean, I'm so glad they made fun of that in Deadpool too. That's the thing too. Like all people are saying that they're gonna dunk on Logan's ending and everything. They dunked on Logan's ending in the very first scene of Deadpool 2 with the alarm clock and the music box thing with the Logan, his death scene and everything. And like, I'll totally admit, I am into that kind of stuff. I know not everybody is, and I am more than okay with that. Personally, I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm curious to see how they do all these crazy cameos and stuff, because like with the Elektra thing, I'm betting she's not going to be in the movie for very long. I'm expecting we're probably going to get Ben Affleck as Daredevil again, which is, I find absolutely hilarious that we're going to get Ben Affleck as both of his multiverse characters in The Flash and in Deadpool.
As a quick thought on this, and I'll send it back to Griffin because you mentioned you have thoughts on the dunking on the Fox universe.
Yeah.
I certainly also want to add it's really frustrating that it feels like all these cameos are being spoiled. Even part of like even the allure of Spider-Man No Way Home was the worst kept secret in Hollywood was that these guys were going to be in it, but we didn't know. And so there was a surprise. And so imagine even if you're watching the movie and surprise, you have a scene and it's Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner no longer married playing a scene together and you didn't know it was going to be there. Even if you'd heard rumors, speculation, but then you just have it. I think that like even as the gimmick of, oh, wow, they actually did that as a surprise as opposed to telling us a year in advance. And it just like cheapens some of that. But let's send it over to you. We'll kind of close out on you, kind of Griffin. Obviously, Deadpool, he riffs on everything. He makes fun of everything. Why not so crazy about him dunking on Fox and all of these universes that we're moving beyond?
So I guess the thing with that, I understand like faux sincerity and meta-ness is like really popular right now, and like it's part of why people like Taika Waititi and like Ryan Reynolds are really beloved in the pop culture zeitgeist right now. I think after a while, I just kind of get over that because like for as fun and as funny as it is, if you don't have like a heart to what you're doing, I just like, I don't know. There's just something like deeply cynical about that whole thing that just doesn't really work for me. That's why I think like James Gunn is a perfect counterpoint to that, because he does really mean-spirited stuff and often like off-putting stuff, but then he counteracts that with like a really strong, profound, emotional heart, and it's why he's in the position that he's at.
That's where you watch it, and like he can get away with so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he can do such weird things.
Yeah.
Because he's so sincere with Polka Dot Man.
Yeah.
And it like it's so weird, but also he cares about this character. And I mean, I think that maybe that irreverence, just whatever, everything's a joke.
Yeah.
Whereas James Gunn has a lot of jokes, but he also takes everything seriously.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing. Like I don't over the past like however many years Ryan Reynolds has been making projects doing like different variations of Deadpool basically. I don't feel like I've gotten a lot of that. And also with like someone like Taika Waititi, I think during the Thor Love and Thunder press tour, that was pretty eye-opening to just kind of like how he views those whole things. And I promise this is all going to circle back into the Fox thing, but like so the point of so Deadpool, and so seeing Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and Hugh Jackman as Logan is cool. I just think it's cool superficially because there are so many times in like throughout the course of cinematic history where we're like, wow, I really wish we could have seen this character or this person playing this character and this person playing this character, this version of the character in the same movie. And it's like, yeah, it's a cool what if, but what is it more than just a cool what if? I understand.
A fan film on Twitter it's great to see. It is fun. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But that's it's not clever to say, hey, I got to see these two characters. That's not clever. It's not great writing. But that doesn't cheapen the fact that I totally get why it's great to see it.
Yeah, exactly. But in regards to like the Fox thing, like, I'm assuming the whole gist of this movie is going to be like Deadpool kills the Fox universe. And I'd be down for that if it was coming from any other studio other than Disney. It feels a bit gross when it's coming from Disney. And I understand like this is Ryan Reynolds and he's doing his own thing, and like he can say one thing, but that doesn't mean that when I see it on the screen, I'm going to feel the way that he's intending it to. I can I always try and meet the filmmaker where they're at, but I'm obviously going to have my own, kind of feelings about the matter. And so it's like, I just think it's really gross that like Disney's Fox, kind of riffing on that, because that acquisition gutted most of their non-IP projects. It led to thousands of layoffs. And like when you're making that like the punchline of Deadpool 3 and you're taking cheap shots at the movies that yeah, a lot of them were bad.
They
Some of them
paved
were
the
good.
way.
They
And even
paved
like
the
that's
way.
where Kevin Feige
Yeah.
was
yeah.
producer on both of these projects that led to the MCU. And
For sure.
you had to have the movies where we
Yeah.
didn't figure out the formula to figure out what doesn't work and figure out what does work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they did a ton of the work that made it so the MCU could just come out so strong with Iron Man.
Yeah, and I mean, like someone like Ben Affleck and even Jennifer Gardner, my God, they were ridiculed for like taking these roles in the movies turning out the way that they did. And so to kind of revisit that, like, I mean, I'm sure Ben Affleck and Jennifer Gardner don't really care, and they're getting a nice paycheck, and they're just sort of like, yeah, whatever, I'll do this for this funny punchline, because I'm sure they make jokes of it themselves. But it just feels weird to kind of like go back and like keep, punching down on
Right.
stuff that we've all kind of collectively punched down on for years. There's nothing witty about that. There's nothing funny about that. It's not charming. Like, it's just kind of like,
It's an easy target.
it's an easy target. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole film. It's just going for like low hanging fruit that they know people are just kind of like going to eat up because it's either nostalgia or it's like an easy target that people have been making fun of for years. And it's just like, I don't really like the optics of it all. And yeah, I know like Ryan Reynolds isn't making fun of like all the people who got laid off because of the Fox merger, but it kind of feels like that in a sense. It's like, oh, this Disney can like just like gobbled up this other studio and we're going to kill that universe. It's just, I don't know. It's just lacking that sincerity that it's frustrating.
Yeah. Richard, if you can close us out with your 30-second response to give us the positive other side to it, and then we'll kind of move on to a couple of our other subjects on here.
Yeah, and like I hear both of you guys' point of views. I completely understand, like, and obviously the management side of it all, that's never fun to deal with, like the whole Disney taking over Fox thing.
Yeah.
And I can't argue against that. I just think for me,
Is that a TVA mug that you just drank out of?
It is. I just wanted you guys to know that I do like these projects because I'm drinking out of a
There.
TVA mug. Yeah.
There you go. Sorry, I cut you off there. I
No,
saw the
fair
TVA
enough,
mug,
fair
and
enough.
it tied so much into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And no, and like what I'm doing, for me personally, even like as pessimistic as I was, I bring this back to the Flash again. As pessimistic as I was about that movie going into it, just because of all the crap that we had to deal with beforehand, I still try to go into it optimistically. It didn't work out for me, but that's another story. That's what I'm trying to do with Deadpool. Is like I'm looking at the good of what this movie can be. Is like we get the Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman interaction that we've wanted for a long time. I think they're going to put their best effort into it, and what they do with the cameos, I'm waiting and seeing if they do it right, if they do a good job with it. I don't think that's going to be the whole movie. That's what I'm leaning on. Is it's not going to be the whole movie. It's going to be like riffing on like killing the Fox universe and doing all these cameos and stuff, because there's TVA stuff involved too, and it could tie into the whole multiverse saga. So fingers crossed. I hope I'm right. I get the concerns, but I'm excited for it either way.
Yeah, I'm some of that's my other where I get concerned that the appeal of the first Deadpool of just kind of being the Ryan Reynolds show gets lost the bigger it gets. So even time travel in the second film felt like we're doing a few too many things, and that didn't serve the characters much. And then even more so, the meta humor fits, obviously. Making fun of stuff fits with the character, but does it also get too much that it loses the franchise's ultimate asset, which is Ryan Reynolds? We had a super chat come in from Daniel Skinner. Hey, Daniel Skinner. Biggest difference between The Flash and Deadpool 3, in my honest opinion, is The Flash was made by people we all lost respect for. I would disagree with that assertion. I think there's a person that, for obvious reasons, many of us have a lot of concerns about, but phrasing it as we lost respect for, or made by people we all lost respect for, I think that's overstating the point. Whereas Deadpool 3 was made by people we love, therefore we all actually hype it. I don't have anything negative to say about Andy Muschietti, the screenwriters, even some of the people that came up with the story. It's the same people that came up with the story for Dungeons and Dragons, which I loved.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming. Like this is like I kind of almost wish like what was different about their version of it. I thinking about that gets me kind of excited. But obviously Ezra Miller there's a lot of scandal, there's a lot of things kind of going on there, but that's one out of thousands of people that worked on the film. So saying we lost, it was made by people because the lead performer, I think you're way overstating it. I can certainly see where my wife didn't want to go see The Flash over Warner Brothers' response to the scandals and not addressing it. I get that, but I think you're overstating the point. I don't want to linger on this too much. Did you have a quick 2-3 second responses on that one?
Same with my wife. Actually, my wife has kind of actually been on the same boat with the whole Ezra Miller thing. I get it. I understand it. The Ezra Miller thing is really uncomfortable, but I agree with you for the most part.
Yeah, I don't know if I really I just don't agree with the statement. I guess I can understand because like one person has played the character for longer, so he's in tune with what I guess people want from that character. So I guess there's that, but I don't like Andy Muschietti is a great filmmaker. Like he obviously has a lot of passion for the stuff that he does, and I don't think that The Flash was made with a lack of care. In fact, I would say that movie is incredibly sincere and heartfelt.
Right. I mean, I think there's just and first I also loved it.
Yeah,
so I was excited for it.
Yeah.
And like, it was fascinating. I was really surprised actually that it was as divisive as it was. I really thought it was going to be a crowd pleaser, and it was kind of fascinated when.
That's what I thought too.
Like Richard, when I hear like you didn't like it, like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I really wanted to like it.
I was very caught off guard. Like I left the theater very much expecting a different response to it from general public. But that's what's fun about movies, and sometimes that's what makes us love them, is that they're a little bit spicier. Real quick reaction on this question. There's a new Superman animated show. Don't want to linger on this too long. Have either one of you seen it?
No.
I want to. It's on my list.
Yeah, I've heard good things. Yeah.
So I watched the first 2 episodes. I hadn't seen a trailer. I didn't know much about it going into it, and I thought it was really charming. Like I was surprised how much I liked it. Like I was, wow, I really like this, and almost immediately too. And then I showed it to my kids, and they were into it too. So I'm planning on my second channel to do a video about it. I've just been busy, so it hasn't happened yet. But just wanted to stop and address that real quick. Yeah. Also, as a nice lead into our next topic of discussion, which is that yesterday we got some new casting information for Superman Legacy. When I first heard about it, I didn't see that they actually had roles associated with this. I just saw Nathan Fillion's in Superman Legacy. I was like, yeah, I could have told you that as soon as James Gunn was hired. This is not surprising. This is not actually news. Yeah. And so someone messaged me, are you going to make a video about this? Like, no, there's nothing to talk about. And then I actually read the article, and the article itself actually tells us more information. And so Isabela Merced will play Hawkgirl. And so she's been in a number of movies over the last 5 years. Edi Gathegi, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, is Mr. Terrific. And Nathan Fillion will portray Green Lantern Guy Gardner version of him, which as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, the actual headline here, I don't even think is the casting. That's not the interesting thing about this. It's that this early on, they're just telling us that in this universe, we're doing a populated universe where there's just heroes out there, and they already exist. So that to me was almost the more interesting thing, even than telling us, oh, casually, Nathan Fillion's one of the Green Lanterns, which I'm sure like he's not even going to be a major part. I'm sure he's just his buddies showing up in some small role. And that itself, it's just a populated universe. That's what was most interesting to me. Richard, did we lose you? You still there? Nope, no connection. It looks like we lost him. So when he comes back, well, it looks like it's the two of us, just me and you, once again.
Back to the way it used to be.
So I don't remember how much we've talked about James Gunn's DCU. So quick reaction to his DCU. And we got Richard appears to be back, but I'll send it over to you. And real quick, your thoughts, your excitement level for it, and then this casting, and then the fact that this means we have a populated universe right from the get-go.
Yeah. I kind of love this. It's the perfect contrast to what I think they were trying to do with the DCEU, where like Superman was the everything kind of orbited around him. Now there's an existing universe, and Superman, I think what it does is like it allows Superman to be our entryway into this world, and it allows us to relate to him as a person a bit more. And so that relatability, that connection, I think is going to be a key component to all of this. Plus, I think if you're looking at the projects he's doing, you've got Creature Commandos, you've got like the Blue Beetle stuff, the Authority. I don't know, like I'm not like a comics expert, but it seems like they're going through different eras in time leading up to the one where Superman arrives. And so it'll almost feel like a Watchmen sort of thing where like we've had the Minutemen and now this new group of superheroes is around and they're dealing with new issues. I think it also gives the title Superman Legacy a bit more context, or it gives it more meaning, you know, because we're understanding that there is a superhero legacy that Superman will now have to uphold. And so I kind of like that. That's a lot of fun.
Did you have specific thoughts on these actors? I was actually it was Isabella's birthday a couple days ago. I start every day checking IMDb for whose birthday it was, and I saw her, and I literally thought to myself, oh, like, wait, she was in Instant Family, she was in Dora the Explorer, she was in Transformers, Mario 2. I haven't seen her in anything in several years, and the next day she's announced as Hawkgirl. I was like, well, there it is. All right. Do you have specific thoughts on these castings? How do you think they'll have a big role?
I don't think I know a big concern now is people being like, oh, Superman's going to get overshadowed in his own movie. I don't think that's going to happen. I trust James Gunn to put him at the forefront, especially because we know how he handles ensembles. He always finds a way to find a main character. Just look at Rocket and Guardians 3. As for the castings themselves, like I'm down with each of the actors if Gunn thinks they're down. I don't, you know, like you haven't seen two of them in a hot second. So, the actor playing Mr. Terrific? Is that what it is? Or him, and then the actress playing Hawkgirl. But I'm down to see both of them in it. The one that I am so freaking stoked about is Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, because Guy Gardner is exactly the kind of character that James Gunn excels at writing, because he's such a dick, but he can be a nice guy at times. And Nathan Fillion can play both sides of the coin there. And it just, I think that's a match made in heaven, and casting one of his buddies in that role, who's also proven to be a great actor. We're going to get some incredible moments from that pairing.
Well, let's send that over to me. There we go. All right, Richard. So your 1-2 sentence thoughts on the James Gunn's DCU in general. What do you think of the idea of a populated DCU from the get-go with a lot of these characters, and then any specific thoughts on these castings?
I'm very excited, obviously. I mean, James Gunn running the DCU, I'm such a huge fan of, especially after killing it with Guardians 3. I mean, one of my top 3 MCU movies now.
So you're not tweeting out a lot of hashtag fire James Gunn? That you're not?
No.
So that's some of that's funny to me, that like you're either like, man, this is great, or you're like, fire this guy. He's the wrong pick, but that's Twitter for you.
Oh god, Twitter's a cesspool.
Go to Threads.
I did just create a Threads account a few days ago. I'm not.
You can send your threads straight over to your Instagram stories, which is fantastic. I love that feature.
Yeah. Cool. Rabbit
trail. Sorry, take it back to you.
And also you were mentioning the birthday thing. It's Rachel Brosnahan's birthday today. I just saw. I'm like 99% sure. And she's playing the new Lois Lane. I'm very excited for her. And obviously, David Cornsweet is Superman. I think he hasn't really been out there a lot, but what I've heard about him is really good. And he's obviously got the stature to play Superman too. He's freaking 5.
And that's what I want. Like when they announced the casting, people were like, what do you think about him specifically? And I was like, I don't know, because I don't know a ton of his work, but that's exactly what I want. I want a guy that I see Superman. I couldn't have told you, like when they cast Henry Cavill, I was like, wait, what's he in? Oh, wait, he was the son in the Count of Monte Cristo? What? Okay. And so then you just see him as Superman. And so that's what I wanted. What do you think about the idea of a populated universe? Anything specific thoughts on these 3 actors in these roles?
I don't mind the idea of a populated superhero universe, because the thing with origin stories as of recently, if I can go on a little diatribe, we've had a lot of the origin stories. I don't know if we necessarily need Superman's origin story anymore. We saw it work in the Spider-Man franchise without going the whole Spider Bite, Uncle Ben, great power, great responsibility, which they did later. But I'm really excited to see like what this kind of already up and coming Superman is going to do, especially because it's going to be like in his early years at the Daily Planet. And as for the casting, I'm really, really digging it. I actually watched Transformers The Last Night for the first time recently within the last few months.
Classic film.
Yeah, classic.
Its use of the Holocaust was very tasteful.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. But Isabela Merced was a lot of fun in there. I really liked her character, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do as Hawkgirl. I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, the guy who's playing Mr. Terrific. Edi Gathegi. I hope I'm saying it right. I'm praying. Mm-hmm. He just better get more screen time than he did in X-Men First Class, because that was messed up what they did to him in that movie.
I was trying to remember.
Maybe he'll be in Deadpool 3.
God.
Like I was trying to remember, like where would I last see him? Because he was in Twilight, and then he was in the First Class movies, and I remember him like 10 years ago being a bunch of stuff. And I haven't seen him in much, and then once again he appears here. I forgot to mention, Richard, you sent this to me right before we started this, but they also just announced that Anthony Carrigan has been cast as Metaphoro in the film as well, and so just kind of adding in a lot of these kind of fun character actors. And James Gunn is really good at casting.
Yes, he is.
Like he finds people that are interesting and finds ways to take obscure characters and match him up with a fun performer. Any specific thoughts on? I don't know about Metaphor, so I don't have anything to really add when it comes to him.
Not really. I mean, it seems like an interesting character from the little bit that I've heard about him, but I'm very curious to see where Gunn goes with it. I think we've got time to work up to the Zods and the Lex Luthors and everything over the years as Superman grows.
Any thoughts from you on Anthony joining, or is it just another fun casting?
Yeah, I mean, I love him. He's incredible in Barry as NoHo Hank. So I'm just happy to see him get more work. I know literally nothing about this character, so if Gunn thinks that he's a good little, spice to add into the mix, then sure, why not?
I mean, James Gunn is the man who made the Guardians of the Galaxy relevant. So if anybody can bring characters that people have no idea what they are, it's James Gunn.
Exactly. Yeah. We talked about this earlier, but that's kind of his gift, is working with these ensembles of very weird characters. I remember when they announced Guardians of the Galaxy Comic-Con 2012, and I was like, what are they doing? This is your follow-up to Avengers? And then James Gunn is like, they brought him in, and I was like, all right, he wrote Dawn of the Dead and Scooby-Doo and did these small movies, and then they're casting the side character from Parks and Rec. Like, I don't know, let's see. And then the trailer came out, and you immediately went, oh, this guy might know what he's doing. And it's such like from just the first teaser trailer for it, you fell in love with the characters and understood exactly what they were going for. He's so good at that sort of thing. And tying back to like the topic of conversation here of the idea of him launching essentially this gigantic ensemble, a new DC universe, like that could be the exact thing that he's perfect to do. The big fear I do have about it is that it seems like they're doing this almost a full reboot, except for these fill-in-the-blank characters, and especially after The Flash didn't seem like people seem like they're just kind of done. I think they need a fresh start. That's the biggest concern that I kind of have. Thoughts?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think going the full reboot is more the right way to go. I mean, like Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, if you want to keep those, and fine, they've got their loose ties and everything. But I hope it's more of a full reboot.
I think it will be. I mean, obviously, I can still get behind them using like Blue Beetle and stuff like that, because that seems like a pretty like insular sort of thing. Plus, like with everything that Gunn is pulling from, it really feels like Ted Kord is going to be integrated in this in some capacity. And I know there were rumors that maybe Jason Sudeikis is playing him. So if that's true, I mean, that's just like a genius piece of casting that
that was a while ago. I'm not sure if that ever came to be, but I remember that rumor.
Yeah. It's just one of those ones. It's like, oh man, that would be too good to be true if that's like actually who's gonna play Ted Kord. But
they are getting all the Ted Lasso people in comic books.
They are. Yeah.
Fair that. Brett Goldstein, Juno Temple, Christopher Fernandez. I'm such a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Blue Beetle, that'll kind of bring us to the next subject. We got a new trailer yesterday for Blue Beetle. And when James Gunn was on the Michael Rosenbaum podcast a month ago, he said Blue Beetle is the first DCU character. And the director said it's DCU. But James Gunn also said Superman Legacy is the first DCU film. A little bit confusing, but we got a new trailer for it. And I feel it's... I'm not quite sure how exactly I feel about it. Like, it feels fun. I've enjoyed but it feels a little bit generic. What I've kind of seen from the first two trailers. I'm excited to see our lead from Cobra Kai getting to be in a movie. I'm down for that. I'm curious exactly what how he'll do leading a big expensive film. Griffin, I believe you were pretty positive on the first trailer.
Yeah.
Is that where you're still at? And what do you think about this second trailer?
Yeah, I actually really. So I have two thoughts. One, I really like the trailer. Two, they showed like the whole movie in this.
Yes,
so that's like my big complaint with it. But on like solely like vibes and just like the characters and the way it looks, like I'm like really down for that. I think like Jaime Reyes is like a really interesting character, and I like that they're like him becoming a superhero is more of a family affair. And that's something different that I don't think we've necessarily seen.
Would you say you're pretty familiar with Blue Beetle?
No, not too much. I mean, like the only stuff that I know about Blue Beetle is just stuff from like what was he? He was in Young Justice, right? And then like the Injustice games. It's like
I know him from Batman: The Brave and the Bold, which is like a comedic campy spin. So I'm really not terribly familiar with him.
Yeah. I'm not like a super big I mean, like I've read a couple like like pages on like his history and everything, and like Ted Kord being the original, or I guess there was like one before him, but like Ted Kord being the predecessor and all that stuff. But anyway, I like just in terms of this trailer, like I get what you're saying about it feeling generic. Like, yeah, it does feel like it's hitting the familiar beats of like a superhero origin film like this. But maybe it's just because I've been like inundated with like so much multiverse and like convoluted crap in superhero movies for so long. The simplicity of this and the focus on like Jaime and his family, that really kind of endears me to the movie, or at least is like going to make me want to see it more than some other stuff. So like I'm not expecting this to be like the greatest thing ever made. I'm not expecting it to save the DC brand, but I think we can expect like a solid little film about a kid coming of age as a superhero with a Latino family and that dynamic, and like him. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of room to like put forth a really like heartfelt story, which I'm down for. Richard,
where are you at with the Blue Beetle in this new trailer?
I'm pretty much the same. I mean, they did give away a lot of this movie.
Yeah, that's watching it. That was like, this is one of those trailers where I feel like you just gave me the summary of the film in order.
Yeah, this is one of those trailers I might not have watched if I didn't actually have to, like, for work or anything. But no, I'm I wouldn't say cautiously optimistic, because I'm more than that. I think it's going to be a good movie. I'm just worried about like the DC brand of it and everything, just because of some of the moves that we've got recently, even besides the Flash, like Shazam 2 and
it just
stuff like that.
I know that too, of like, feels like just this year with the odd timing of the DCU announcement.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It feels like people are just not.
Yeah, there's such a discord between like there's this weird middle ground between like the stuff that's coming out this year, tying back to the Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse of it or whatever, moving forward to the Gunn verse. That's still a couple years away. This one, I think it's honestly going to be a little hard to judge until we get more information on what the DC universe is going to have, how this version of Blue Beetle, if it's this version of Blue Beetle that fits into the future. But as a movie in and of itself, I'm looking forward to it. Like you guys said, I really like the family vibes of it. like Griffin was saying, I don't think we've actually really seen a story like this in a superhero movie before. And whenever you can do something different with a superhero movie, usually that means it's going to be something pretty good and at least pretty fun. So I think it's going to be something heartwarming, emotional. I mean, George Lopez in a superhero movie was not on not on my card ever. I mean, George Lopez and Susan Sarandon in a superhero movie, which is just still crazy to me. But I'm really looking forward to Zola Maraduena as the lead. I think it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and it comes out on my anniversary, so that's kind of a nice bonus.
Nice. And even speaking of things you haven't seen, like I think that family dynamic, if it can pull that off, of like it's about him, but it's the family, and I'm not going to say what the last shot of this latest trailer was for those that haven't seen it. It feels like be a nice reveal for people to see the movie, but in the family dynamic, they do a thing at the end of this trailer where you go, that's a funny image. Like the family is involved in this, so that could be where this one pops. Crashing Coyote had a super chat. I think they're making Peacemaker Psycho Pirate, the one character who remembers the old universe, and everyone makes fun of him for remembering things wrong. I don't catch that reference. I mean, I understand what he described. Do you guys know what he's specifically referring to as Psycho Pirate?
Not specifically. I mean, it does kind of feel. I mean, like from what he's saying, it feels a little bit maybe Deadpool-y.
Yeah,
like maybe
that would be fun. Like it's kind of funny if that was something like that happen.
Yeah, I mean that would be, and I love John Cena doing that. I mean, John Cena's Peacemaker is one of my favorite superhero castings ever. So
next trailer I wanted to talk about on here. Yesterday we got a ton of trailers yesterday. I guess someone said that they were dropping a bunch of the trailers because of the actor strike. I heard I don't know if that's real or not, but a ton of trailers dropped. We're talking about a couple of them. We got the first Wonka trailer. I was not at all in any way particularly excited for Wonka. It was like, okay, a Wonka movie, Timothy Chalamet, all right, cool, whatever. I put on the trailer just to check it out. And almost instantly, I found it so much more charming than I was expecting. Right out of the gate. Just from as soon as he started talking, maybe I just haven't seen enough of his films, or I haven't seen this version of him. But, Dune, straight-faced, and then what was the cannibal movie he was in last year? Like super...
Bones and All. Yeah.
Bones and All. Super serious character. And so I didn't know that he had this vibe to him, so I couldn't see the casting. And it starts off, and almost immediately I was like, oh man, you won me over. This you've done your job in the first 15 seconds of this. I'm actually excited for this now, and I'm not like a big Wonka person. My middle child Chloe really likes Wonka, and I watched it and I was like, oh, this will be so fun to take her to this movie. And then it looked a little wonky at the end, but like Hugh Grant is an Oompa Loompa, another one of those things that I think I'd forgotten that was a thing. Maybe I'd read it before, but it just cut to it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was the public, but it cut to it, and I was like, I really like Hugh Grant, and so it cuts to that, and I was like, oh, I love this. This is so weird that I kind of like, and even like the weird world building it does in just this trailer. I love that trailer so much. I don't know if love's the right word. That might be overstating it, but I was just charmed so much more by that trailer than I was expecting. Loved it. I keep using that word. Maybe I did love it because I keep going back to that word. But
that's your first instinct.
Perhaps maybe I need to say that I loved the because it did its job so well. A movie I was not really excited for, and when you have those pleasant surprises, that's a great feeling. Richard, how about you? How you feeling on the Wonka trailer?
I don't know if I'm necessarily as high as you. Like, I definitely started out.
How dare you? How do I kick you out of this stream?
How dare they?
Sorry. Back down.
Listen, if you want me to deal with the threatening Darth Vader voice, I can go there for you. But no, I'm more or less the same way as you. Like, especially at the beginning, I had no idea why they were making this movie. I think it's gonna take a little more to like win me over fully. But I think the thing that got me the most is Timothée Chalamet's performance as this younger, new version of Wonka. Like, I remember when he was in the running for Spider-Man way back in the day before Tom Holland got it. And I feel like this is kind of maybe a little bit of the vibe we would have gotten from his version of Spider-Man in the MCU. But he definitely has that charm about him. And I'll give him that. I really haven't seen him in a lot of these kind of roles, obviously, Dune and Bones and everything. But I'm really hoping it's good. I hope it's at least a fun, memorable experience. Hugh Grant is an Oompa Loompa. I did not see that coming. and Hugh Grant with these weird ass like out of the blue appearances like
right. He's like in a way more stuff this year than I was expecting. Which is kind of fascinating. How about you, Griffin? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm in a weird position where like I was really charmed by the trailer. I loved it. I think it's going to be a great family holiday movie towards the back half of the year. And this has actually been one that I've been really looking forward to because the director of Paddington is the guy behind this movie. So it's like, that it's going to have a lot of charm. It's going to have a lot of heart. It's going to be sweet. It's just like, and the whimsy of it all is really like endearing. Weirdly enough, I'm not sold on Timothée Chalamet in this movie. I think that like obviously he's one of the greatest actors working today. I mean, he's probably going to be like the next DiCaprio of this generation. He's incredible. He's a great actor. And I don't know. There was just like something about watching him in this trailer where I'm like, yeah, you're hitting these beats. You've got like a certain kind of charisma, but I'm seeing too much of a movie star. I'm not like seeing the character necessarily. And I think that's, I don't know. I saw a tweet that was like, he feels like the high school basketball star trying to play the Wizard of Oz in the High School Musical. And I was like, that's like, you're not entirely off base there. There is just like something a little, there was a bit of a disconnect, from me with this, but obviously this is just a trailer. It could work within the full context of the film. And Timothée Chalamet is an incredible actor, and I'm loving the vibes of the trailer. But that's really just my big iffy part.
You saw more Timothée Chalamet than you did Wonka.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think when you're playing a character like Willy Wonka, especially if this is supposed to be like young Gene Wilder, I want to see that character, not necessarily
the actor
Timothée Chalamet. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess I'm the one that really maybe it's. I guess has Timothy had like a lighter role where he's playing more of a charming character like this before that you've seen, or
not that I can think of? No.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that too. This is. You know what? I'm gonna look again. Hold on, because I'm not too sure. Actually,
yeah, that's when I heard he was cast. I was like, the guy that is like the serious actor of his generation. Is like really for Wonka of all the people to.
It was a strange pick.
I'll say they're not like light movies, but like. I mean, him and Don't Look Up is like he's kind of playing like a funny character. Lady Bird, same sort of thing. Little Women, he has like one of the most emotional scenes in the film, but it's a little lighter, I guess, than something like Bones and All or Call Me by Your Name. But yeah, that's a really good point, Sean, because now that I'm thinking about it, this is like the lightest tone I think we've seen from him as an actor.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
So, final main topic of the day. That's me. Nope. Trying to remember this. I'm switched software I'm using, so I keep clicking buttons thinking it's going to do something, and it does something entirely different. So, final kind of big thing. This was a fun one that I saw, but a couple days ago, James Cameron seemed to casually, subtly kind of confirm Alita 2 is in the works. And so this is a movie that I want a sequel to. Since the first one came out, this one I've been excited about it. And so to kind of give you the specific quote that led to this is that I guess James Cameron just sold one of his houses. And so someone asked him, why did you sell your house? And he explained, I'm working in Wellington and Los Angeles, and on the new Alita Battle Angel films, I'll be working in Austin, so it just didn't make sense for us to live there anymore. So it's like one of those quotes that he just kind of like says something, and you go, hey, wait a minute. Did you just tell us something pretty important about this movie that's coming out? I don't think that the first Alita is fantastic, but it's a movie where I want to see more of this world. I really like this lead character. I would love to get more kind of from this space. And so that, like, hearing that, any little glimmers of hope that maybe we'll get Alita 2 makes me go, I hope that happens. Griffin, what did you think about the idea that maybe we got Alita 2? Is that exciting to you? What do you make of this little quote from Mr. Cameron?
Yeah, thank God, because I was actually a really big fan of this movie. I agree, it's not perfect. There's some of that James Cameron like teen melodrama that's just a bit too cringy for me, and like it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's like his brand. It just kind of it's whatever. But also the guy who I can't remember if he died in the first one, but like the actor who played her love interest. Did not like him at all.
No. He was in a different league from everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't
like
help.
Alita was so charming while strong, and then Christoph Waltz, and then that guy was like, how'd you get this? Who are you? Like related to someone? What's going on here?
Yeah, that guy felt like he was in like Mortal Engines, if you remember that movie. But honestly, because the movie I guess didn't do as well, and because of the Fox merger and a bunch of stuff, I was like, we're never gonna get a sequel to this. But there has been a very vocal section of like the online fandom community that has been championing an Alita Battle Angel movie, and the fact that Cameron is hinting at the fact that like we're probably going to get a sequel to that. Like, hell yeah, I'm all in for it, especially since he doesn't have to direct them. He can be a part of the writing process. Obviously, I don't know how much time he can devote to the post-production of it all, but I'm sure he'll like sign off on stuff. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Moving to Austin, work with Robert Rodriguez, get the Alita movies done. Like, I'm so for this. I just think it's hilarious that this is the way we found out.
Right. Just that's the quote. Like, I sold my house. Like,
like, what?
Whoops.
Yeah, just like outrageous. Yeah.
So, like, for me, I've always had this very strange relationship with the Avatar films. I think James Cameron's a master filmmaker and does incredible things. I'm just not all that interested in the specific world that he's decided to dedicate 30 years of his life to. And I feel like Alita's not as well crafted or like there's some clunkiness there. Robert Rodriguez does things that I love, but he's not as strong and just holistically competent as James Cameron in a lot of ways. But like of these two A franchises, I'd much rather see more in the world of Alita. I feel like it's a world I want to explore versus the world of Avatar. And so, especially when you're like getting 1 zillion more Avatar films, that was like my feeling. So the idea that we might get another one and kind of continue exploring this world, I'd love to see that. Richard, have you seen Alita?
I have not. I mean, I've heard a lot about it. I know, like what Griffin was saying, there's a huge like social media group that loves the Alita movie. So I'm gonna have to check it out. The thing I'm curious about is, when is James Cameron going to have time to make this movie with 3 more freaking Avatar movies coming out over the next God knows how many years?
Yeah, I mean the 5th one doesn't come out until the 2030s, so I mean he's got time in between projects. So if I don't know if you know the details on the history of this, but basically back in like 2005, James Cameron was going, what do I want to do next? And he was sitting there with these 2 projects, Avatar and Battle Angel, as it was called back then. And he was going, which one should I do? And he was going back and forth deciding which one to do. Obviously, he decided to do Avatar, but he never lost his interest in Alita Battle Angel. And it's based off a manga. There's a long history there, robust fan base, a long history, a lot of source material. And then when Alita came out, James Cameron was the script guy. And so he was very involved in it, but Robert Rodriguez directed him. And I think it showed us some of the good side to Robert Rodriguez, which is he can direct very vibrant, dynamic action sequences. And so that's all in there. But yeah, that's where I like, it's one of those ones where the thing that was surprising about it is Alita herself, who is this battle angel that kills people. She's very endearing. Like very charming as a character, while also like killing people. She has this naive energy and a strong confidence at the same time that it's like, oh, this is a really likable. I want to see this person do more stuff, more of that. So you should check it out. Like
it's on my list for sure.
there's some things in there that are like, that's an obvious fault, and okay, that's a little clunky, but it's an interesting world with a great lead character.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it at some point.
All righty. Any final thoughts on that one for us? For anyone?
We'll see.
All righty.
I mean, Cameron keeps the train going. I mean, he's got freaking 2 of the 3 highest grossing movies ever, so he can do whatever he wants now.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
James Cameron, what a crazy career.
What a dude.
This year, trying to think. I guess whenever Titanic came out, you guys were still learning to speak and walk. You stop and think about that.
True.
At the phases of your life that you can remember, he's only done Avatar films. That's wild to me. That's crazy.
I remember seeing Titanic on a plane once for the first time. I think I was like 8 or 9 or something. Because
the ideal way to watch Titanic on a plane.
Oh yeah. I think it was like a cross country flight from like California to New York or something. So it almost took up the whole flight. But like, when did that come out? 97?
97.
So I was like 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me a long time to actually like get through the entire movie for like a whole sitting. But it's a epic movie, and I cannot believe they're doing it in real life, which is a whole other story for another day because I could go on a rant about that.
All right, we had a super chat come in. Do you think Deadpool 3 will make $1 billion? In my honest opinion, I don't. I don't think it has a chance of hitting $1 billion. Maybe that's overstating it. I don't think it'll hit $1 billion, but I also don't like $1 billion isn't normally a good benchmark for what to expect from movies. I think 2019 gave us this very strange, skewed perspective on what movies should do, but it also warped the brains of producers and executives. And so then they all went like, we need our own $2 billion film, and just so escalated expectations to where they greenlit too many movies that cost too much money. Because in the history of cinema, less than 55 movies have made $1 billion. Mm-hmm. Every year, 700, 800 movies come out. There's like 100 wide release movies every single year. And 50 to 55 movies have made $1 billion. Ever.
Yeah.
It's not very common. And you also just had 2019, there was like movies way overperformed. There was just a lot of movies that did really, really well. And so then people are like, is cinema dead because we're not getting these $1 billion films? That's not the only R-rated movie to ever hit $1 billion is Joker. There's one of all the R-rated films ever released. One of them has hit $1 billion. And so just like to expect Deadpool 3 to do that is to put a burden on its shoulders that it's not able to carry. That you shouldn't expect that movie to make that kind of money. Like maybe if it's the trailers are great, you get that Ryan Reynolds marketing and you kind of tie in all this multiverse stuff. Maybe that'll pull enough things that people are interested. But I have such a hard time imagining that it'll do that. I think people are also starting to be like, multiverse. Yeah. Man, No Way Home was awesome. Well, multiverse movies about Spider-Man are fantastic. The rest of these, I'm not so sure about. What do you think of initial thoughts of how you guys, Griffin? Can it make $1 billion? Is that a good benchmark? What do you think about that?
Can it? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, any movie has the potential to, I guess, if you, especially in the comic book genre. But to your point, yeah, I think the interest in the multiverse is dwindling. This feels like a very I don't know if I want to say niche, but it kind of feels like it's playing to a niche audience. Like, I don't think a lot of casual fans are gonna necessarily go out and because like Ben Affleck is returning as Daredevil, they're gonna be like, why is Ben Affleck returning as Daredevil? That movie was terrible. Or like because I don't even know how much affinity the average moviegoer has for like the Fox X-Men stuff. So it's like, are they gonna go out to see all those cameos? They might go out to see Hugh Jackman reprise his role as Logan again. I think in the chat, Kendrick Lee actually put it best. He's like, Deadpool 3 will for sure be the highest grossing Deadpool movie. That I agree with. Will it make $1 billion? I don't know, because it's an R-rated movie. It's like, yeah, I mean, like that's kind of a big uphill battle. I mean, like you said, we've only seen it one time with Joker, and Joker is like the most popular rogue of all time. So
Yeah, and there's a weird appeal. I mean, the first Suicide Squad movie, like people talk about it like it's a flop. That movie made like $800 million. It was
Yeah.
like way overperformed because Joker was in it. People like forget
Yeah.
People love Joker.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, no.
How about you?
I'm looking up the numbers right now for the Deadpool movies. The first one made 782.6, and the second one made 785.8. So they're really like right in line with each other in terms of box office. I think it's got a small chance of making $1 billion. I think if there's any R-rated movie that could do it, it's Deadpool. It's got some of the right factors that could factor into it. Disney's putting it in its like prime release slot in May, which is like when all the Avengers movies came out, when Guardians 3 came out. But Guardians 3, I think it came close to 850, if I'm not mistaken, at the box office, and that was this year. And people are coming back to the theaters and everything, which is great. It's got all the multiverse stuff. It's got Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman doing Deadpool Wolverine. That'll be fun. I wouldn't expect it to cross $1 billion, but I don't think I would be shocked if it did. I'm kind of
That's a good way to phrase it.
I think I'm pulling in the more like 850 to 900 million range for it. I agree with you. It's definitely going to be the highest grossing Deadpool movie. Easy. I think there's no chance that it's not the highest grossing Deadpool movie. But $1 billion is a tall ask. And like you were saying, Sean, earlier, like I did a thing on my Twitter about like, I think it was when Little Mermaid was coming out, about how it wasn't doing so great at the box office. I think something of the 50 to 55 movies that you said hit $1 billion, I think like 31 of them have come out sometime in the last 15 years too.
Right.
And 2019 obviously was such an anomaly because all 3 MCU movies that year made $1 billion. And then there was Endgame, which is Endgame. So like I said, I don't expect it to hit $1 billion, but I wouldn't be shocked if it does.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we kind of overestimate how popular the X-Men are.
Yeah.
Deadpool's the highest grossing movie in the X-Men franchise. And that, like, some of that maybe is the first X-Men came out. It literally came out 23 years ago. So that's a long time in the history of movies, of box office and things like that. But they're not, like, X-Men was a hit. 2 years later, Spider-Man was a super hit. And you can see like the difference between how the love between those two things. And Spider-Man, I think, also is a little bit more timeless in the sense of my kids, every kid just loves Spider-Man, and because he's a youthful character, he's a easier on-ramp for them. And X-Men aren't quite that, I'm not trying to say X-Men are. I'm not saying that, but there's a difference between
a much easier lead in to.
He's an A-list, like he's this up here, and there is a gap between X-Men, even Hugh Jackman, and like I was there opening day in the year 2000 when X-Men came out, and I watched X-Men the animated series. That show was huge for people my age at the time, and people still love it. That's why they're bringing it back. So I don't want to I'm not saying like diminishing them in that broad sense, but there is a gap between Spider-Man No Way Home and that energy and some of these other ones. And I think even I think The Flash showed us that too, of we're bringing back Michael Keaton, and I'm going, wow. That is not what the box office showed.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman Wolverine is obviously going to be bigger draw, much bigger impact, still a much more relevant, more recent absolutely. But I think there's a little bit tempering expectations. Spider-Man No Way Home was a bit of in and of itself, it's an anomaly. Of Spider-Man is a character of a unique, broad generational appeal.
I will say I'll push back on the idea that the X-Men aren't as popular as Spider-Man, because I think if you traditionally look at the comics, the X-Men are like the most popular comic run like outside of Spider-Man, like they're like people know the X-Men as being like like they were more popular than the Avengers. Like they were the X-Men.
That's
and
true.
Spider. It
That,
was like
like,
X-Men. Yeah,
that is 100% true. Like especially like people my age.
Yeah.
Like my wife didn't know who the Avengers were when
Yeah.
Nick Fury shows up and then we're going to do the Avengers Initiative. My wife's like, "What does that mean?" She had no clue,
yeah.
but she watched X-Men the animated series. Like, "Oh, I love the Dark Phoenix saga." Like she could tell you plot lines from X-Men the animated series.
Yeah.
X-Men, I like that. What you're saying right now, that is true.
And this is sort of what I think. It's like because I agree. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man films came out and they kind of took the world by storm. And I do agree. I think they're a little bit more of an easier entryway into this thing than the X-Men, which I think are a bit more mature and dealing with social themes, adult stuff as well. But I do think one of the big things with the X-Men is that the reason they've kind of dwindled in popularity over the years isn't because of a lack of care for the characters. It's because the movies have been so horrendously inconsistent. Like you get X2, which is often regarded as one of the greatest comic book films of all time. And then you follow that up with X-Men The Last Stand, which I think soured a lot of people on X-Men on the big screen. And then you follow that up with X-Men Origins Wolverine, and you almost kill everything and that's why I think it's been kind of a difficult upswing for X-Men on the big screen, even though like first class was great, Days of Future Past was great, but then they kind of fell back into the same issue with Apocalypse not being super good, and then Dark Phoenix just really the whole thing goes out on a whimper. And so this is also part of the reason why
New Mutants.
Well, that movie doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
I think even to that point, one of the problems is the last time we got just normal X-Men movie was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like we've gotten a lot of X-Men movies, but it's like it feels a little different. Like we're going to do the prequel one, and it's not necessarily the A-list.
Yeah.
And we had Wolverine movies coming up, but it's not Wolverine with Cyclops. It's not that A-list version of it that in Days of Future Past had a lot more of that, and therefore it's widely regarded. And so they're not great like on-ramp. Make the broad audience love the X-Men.
Right.
They're not the best to give you the flavor of it.
Yeah.
And the movies that were that came out almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's created a weird scenario of like, oh, we're rebooting the X-Men. It feels kind of soon, and at the same time, it's like, no, it's not soon at all. That's what it's needed. It's a franchise that, obviously, all of us agree. Logan's one of the best movies in that franchise, maybe the best movie in that franchise, and it came out only 5 years ago. And at the same time, it was like a patchwork franchise in this weird way of they wanted to do prequels and they kept it going,
right?
And it needs a reboot.
Well, I mean, just that's part of the concern with Deadpool 3 is you have all of that baggage from the Fox X-Men. It's like, I guess like you could make this like a send off for that, but like I think Logan was the best you could have gotten at closing that off. And so it's like, if you want to get people excited about X-Men again, make a new X-Men movie, because like this is catering to people who I guess are familiar with the Fox versions of these characters, who want to see these characters again. I think most of the general movie going audience has sort of moved on from them for the reasons that you stated, Sean. And so they really need to be not reinventing, but just like, fixing the X-Men brand in the pop culture zeitgeist, especially for the film,
Yeah.
Johnny says, no telling how much a ticket to Deadpool 3 will be. There's been actually pretty significant ticket price inflation. Like I did I don't know, some video I did recently. I looked that up, and like many things recently, a lot of inflation, but ticket prices have gone up a lot even since 2019. So that's actually kind of a legitimate concern. If it sells the same number of tickets as Deadpool 1 or 2, it'll make 20% more money. Had a couple more super chats come in here, and maybe take a couple questions. We're 10 minutes out from the 90-minute mark. We'll try and land the ship right about there. Let's see, what's the One of the great things about this new software, you can search comments, which is
Oh.
incredible.
Very handy.
It is life changing. I am. It's those of you watching. This is only the second time I've used a new set of streaming software, and it has these smooth transitions and everything, and I can search comments. I am thoroughly enjoying it. So Daniel Skinner with the super chat. Hey, Daniel Skinner, with the box office bonds of Shazam and Flash, is it almost guaranteed that Aquaman 2 also flops, or can China and save Amber Turd? Hashtag I stand with Johnny Depp. I Aquaman itself feels like a little bit of an anomaly in that is the highest grossing DC movie of all time, which no one expected that. And every time you say it, most people are like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? It's not The Dark Knight. It's not The Dark Knight Rises. It's not any of these other things. Like, no, the highest grossing DC movie of all time is Aquaman. No one's favorite comic book movie. But it was fun. It played well globally. And that's why it did well, that it got China's box office. And therefore, it did fantastic globally, and it did really good here in the U.S. too. And so then it made way more money than people realized. It's a sequel that feels 2 or 3 years too late. And when you combine that with negative headlines of, I don't know what percentage of people were like associate Amber Heard and the Johnny Depp, all of that with Aquaman 2. There's a loud group of people on the internet that do. I don't know that my mom, if you want your movie to make $1 billion, you need my mom to go see your film. My mom doesn't know who Amber Heard is. She doesn't know what she did on Johnny Depp's bed. Like, she doesn't know any of that. So I don't know what percentage that is. Like, bad headlines don't help, and it creates bad buzz, absolutely. But I think just the fact that the movie is too late, and that they announced, by the time this movie comes out, a year before they announced, hey, we're doing something different. And it just feels like it lets the air out of the balloon for the remaining DCEU films. And they just feel like these lingering things that are still out there. And they weren't shot. They weren't written. They weren't developed to end the DCEU. That happened late in the game. And so I think that's ultimately what will kind of doom its box office, that it just feels like the air's been let out of the balloon. Griffin, did you have any thoughts on how well you think Aquaman 2 might do?
I mean, like, I think it'll definitely, it's not going to make the same amount of money the first Aquaman made, just because the DC brand isn't in a good place. I don't know how many people, like you said, like seeing Aquaman for the first time, that's exciting, but no one really considers that the best DCEU film. So how many people really care about the sequel? So it's yeah, I don't know. And I mean, if you listen to some of the test screening reports, it's not a really good movie. So it's yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to make $1 billion, but I don't think it has anything to do with Amber Heard or any of that stuff. I mean, she's barely in the movie. Like, I mean, there has been like reported that she has like maybe 15 minutes of screen time. So like, I don't know.
How about you, Richard?
Yeah.
How do you do you think it's going to do compared to the first movie, and what do you think is the ultimate factor in that?
Well, it definitely ain't going to make $1 billion. I think we can all pretty definitively agree that it's not going to make $1 billion. And it still shocks me that Aquaman is the top grossing DC movie, like you were saying. But no, like you were saying, it's going to come out 5 years after the first movie came out. And sometimes that works for sequels, but I don't think it's going to in this case, just because of, like you said, everything that's going on in the DC landscape, the reboot. I don't know if necessarily the Amber Heard stuff is going to doom the movie on its own, but in combination with everything else going on with DC, I don't think it's going to help at all. I mean,
it's that compounding effect of
exactly.
If people were excited about DC, no one would, like, the Amber Heard stuff, I don't think would have too much of an effect. But when they're not as excited and it's been too long, the novelty's gone, and then there's also just kind of like a little bit of that murmur on the internet, well, loud voices on the internet, like, I'm boycotting this film. You add them all up, and it's not good.
Exactly. It doesn't paint a good picture for this movie. I could see it probably doing maybe what 500 to 700 million or so, just because of the DC brand and Jason Momoa. People are going to go out to see Jason Momoa. I will give audiences that, but other than that, I don't know how much this movie's got working for it.
Disney with the super chat, an important super chat. Sean Chandler's mom equals $1 billion films. Very true. That is my mother's legacy in the world, is that if she goes, she needs to see your movie for it to make $1 billion. Had another super chat come in here. We're going to go for about 5 more minutes. So just a couple more questions on here, and then we will close it out. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Also, down below, you can see where you can find them on the internet. Czech Republic, with a play on words. There's rumors that there'll be a Hulk versus Wolverine universe-hopping fight scene in Deadpool 3, and Gen Z has the same level of respect for Hugh as they do Toby. I don't know. It's tough to speak for the whole generation and what exactly qualifies as Gen Z. I don't know that I would agree with this sentiment that they have the same respect. I haven't seen the rumors about a Hulk versus Wolverine universe hopping fight. If they're doing kind of this multiverse extravaganza, I would assume that we will get a bunch of those types of like, they really did it. That's all the rumors about this film kind of have that flavor to them. Like, they really did it. He's in yellow. They're really doing it. Jennifer's coming back. Look at that. It's the Fox logo. They're really doing it. He's really going to kill the Fox universe. So the idea that like he hops into it and we get like 3 minutes of him battling Edward Norton or something like that.
I was thinking Eric Bana. That's
Bana.
what
Right.
Yeah.
Or we got Lou Ferrigno, or like they might go for it, just go wild as can be. And it's like the idea that we'll have these very much winking at the audience scenes of multiverse hopping. It's a movie where that would fit. That's the movie they're making. So I would expect to see some of that. Will it be specifically that? I don't know. But the idea, Gen Z has the same level of respect for Hugh as they do Toby. All right, so I'm an Xennial. I am right between Gen X and millennials. I'm a mix of both of those. So I'm a pretty removed from Gen Z, quite a bit older than both of you. You can speak better to the generation right behind you guys.
Right.
Would you say what's your, like, you have a much better take on than I probably have of how do people under 30 perceive of Toby versus Hugh Jackman?
Well, it's really funny too, because they really started their whole runs as Wolverine and Spider-Man at about the same time. I mean, Jackman was 2000, Tobey Maguire was 2002.
Mm-hmm.
It's so different to me between them because Hugh Jackman's been Wolverine consistently for the past 20 years. I mean, he started in 2000, ended in 2017, and he's still coming back, obviously, in Deadpool 3. But then Maguire was gone for a long time. Like, he ended, and especially because he ended on, like, one of those movies that really wasn't very good in Spider-Man 3. I mean, we all remember Dancing Toby. They made fun of it in Into the Spider-Verse.
My son loves Dancing Toby. He walks around the house doing it like that's like his introduction to meme culture and internet dunking on stuff. But yes,
yeah, I love that moment from Into the Spider-Verse. And I hate this. We'll really talk about that. but no, it is really different because obviously Toby has come back in a big way for No Way Home, and that was amazing. I think he's moving up to that level, like where people have with Jackman, but it's weird. They're sort of going in different directions because Maguire was gone for so long, and he's been memed to hell and back. But it is a really interesting dynamic between them, especially because they've been on this same route for so long.
I was just gonna say to your point about the memes. I think the memes played a big part of why Maguire has remained popular. It's the same reason why I think memes are a reason why those first like 3 seasons of SpongeBob have stayed relevant and are like pretty like cemented in you know, in like, I don't know, just like in the pop culture zeitgeist. Like,
And
I
that,
think
like,
that-
I can like
yeah.
tell you, like, in the last 2 days, I have seen my 11-year-old son sharing little clips, memes of the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Which is like, that is 100% true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that the memes have kind of had an effect. Have like like that's why people still remember Tobey Maguire, because like I mean, like I was a kid when those movies were coming out, so
Yeah.
like I don't even. I mean, I mean, maybe it's like with for Gen Z, it's sort of like those are their like Batman movies, like the Burton and Schumacher
Yeah.
Batman movies. So they like, I don't really know, but I'm gonna
You're probably right, honestly.
yeah, I mean, like it's probably more of like a meme thing. As for Jackman, I mean, yeah, I mean, like he's been like he just stopped playing the character in 2017, and so I think like yeah, I mean, the Wolverine came out in 2013, so this is like those kids are starting to get into like their teenage years or something like that, or they're a little younger, and so like yeah, I get it. It makes sense that they would grow up with Jackman more than they would Toby, but yeah, I don't know. Plus, he's the
I
only
think-
guy who's ever played Wolverine. That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's it.
it so I think that uniquely makes it stand out. There's a
Yeah.
respect there. At the same time, there's also Logan was a R-rated movie that is really designed for people that have been watching the character a long time. It's not an on-ramp movie at all. Overtly, it's the end. It's not the on. And so then likewise, the Wolverine, Days of Future Past aren't kind of designed as on-ramps. And that's somewhat where even when I'm talking about like perspective on it, I might have a weird perspective just because they like overly weight of having my own kids and seeing what they and their friends get drift towards, and what like I'm trying to get them into like X-Men, and they're like, okay, cool, fair enough, whatever, and they're not as interested. Where Spider-Man, it's like, let's do this, let's watch it. So that's somewhat where some of my perspective comes from, and some of it is also just reading my comments and seeing how different videos have performed versus others. Spider-Man just always plays well. Then again, I have a very specific audience.
Yeah, Spider-Man is still probably one of the 2 to 3 most popular superheroes ever. DC, Marvel, whatever you want to say. He's up there with Batman and Superman, and like he's on the Mount Rushmore of superheroes for a reason, and people still love him for that.
All righty, that puts us at over 90 minutes. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the live stream. Richard, where can we find you on the internet? What do you want to plug real quick?
Yeah, so you can find me at Richard Nebens, Nebens. I'm on a lot of the socials, mostly on Twitter. You can find me at Instagram and now Threads. I just started an account a couple weeks ago, and on TikTok. I don't have a big following there yet, but I'm going to try to figure out what I want to do on TikTok. You can find me writing all the time at The Direct. I've got a lot of fun articles out right now. I've done some stuff recently on the Deadpool stuff, a little bit on the Elektra thing. One little niche plug I want to do for an article I wrote a couple weeks ago. If any of you are fans of the TV show Psych out there, I wrote my first article on the potential 4th Psych movie on thedirect.com, and it was one of the most fun articles I've ever gotten to write. It was a great time just predicting, when it could come out, what's the development process on it and everything. But yeah, you can find me, like the way Sean talks about movies all the time, I'm writing about movies all the freaking time. So I'm always busy writing about Marvel, DC, Star Wars, anything I can get my hands on. We're getting into more general articles too at The Direct, like Indiana Jones, Transformers, all the big movies coming out now. You can find me there, and like I said, at Richard Nebens on Twitter. And Sean, thank you so much again for having me. This was an absolute blast. And
it's wild the way the universe works. Once again, if you guys weren't here at the beginning, all this came about because Griffin texted me about going to a live recording of a John Campea, Real Rejects, Christian Harloff show, and kind of like on a whim, I went out there, and Richard was right next to me at the table, right next to me, and so we got to hang out for a good while, and that led even to this little moment. Griffin, where can we find you on the internet, and what do you want to plug?
Yeah, you can head on over to the FilmSpeak channel. I just put out my video on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I'm like one of the very few people that genuinely loved that film, so you can.
I liked it.
Oh well, there we go. Hey, hell yes. Yeah, it's great. I don't like people need to relax. It's not like the death of cinema, as some people are like. It's geez,
Wait,
it's
and
fine.
then, I mean, I was probably the most disappointed of the three of us, but like, I mean, there's a group of the internet that decided they hated it 3
There's
years
a group
ago.
on the internet that decides they hate everything.
Yeah.
But wait, I gotta linger. We'll get right with. I need to pull up the quote. We did a podcast when they announced James Mangold. And I think I have a quote from like, I don't want a deconstruction of Indiana Jones. I'd be fascinated to see your reaction.
I know,
to
dude.
that
That's
quote. I
the
need to
thing,
pull that up.
but-
That could be fun to make
Crazy.
some of that. Anyway, back to plug yourself.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I know.
It's a weird way to
So-
phrase that.
Yeah. No. So there's that. Look, I've been proven wrong before. My Deadpool 3 takes, I'm totally open to reversing my opinion on. So once I see the movie, maybe I'll like it. Who knows? But yeah, you can check that out. And then I've also got videos coming out on the FilmSpeak channel for Mission Impossible 7 and like a cool little Barbenheimer editorial before those two films.
That's another one. You're also like this.
Dude,
all these
I am
hot
on
takes.
I'm on a roll
You're on a roll.
right
That's
now.
actually I meant to talk about that in here. I forgot about it, but so this morning I watched Mission Impossible 7 for the second time. Definitely still love it. And Griffin, can you give us your 30-second flip side to it? I mean, like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. You love spy movies. You love Tom Cruise. Could you give us the 30-second one of like you're in love with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Why do you hate him now?
I look, I'm just as stunned as you that I didn't really like it. I've seen it twice now. The AI concept, the way it's handled in the film is really nebulous and outdated. I also just think that the handling of the female characters in the film is pretty repulsive to insulting in a regard. And I just...
Wait, can you unpack that? Give us just a little, when you specifically say that without going into too many, without spoilers, can you unpack that a little bit?
The way that, oh God, it's really hard to talk without talking about spoilers. It's like there's something that happens that like derailed the movie for me.
And
that's not
used to motivate a character.
Yes.
Would it be in that regard? The treatment of a female character for the purpose.
Yes. You all are probably familiar with the term fridging. Well, look out for it when you see MI7. That is not the only reason, but there's like a weird commentary going on that kind of extends into Tom Cruise's personal life in the film that I'm just sort of like, this is just weird. And then on top of that, I just think the movie's kind of a mess in terms of the ideas that it's grappling with, and the part one of it all doesn't help. So it was a bunch of these things that just left me like, man, I saw what you were going for. It didn't really work for me. Anyways, so sorry to be.
I meant to ask you about that one earlier in here, so we could have talked about it a little bit longer. But at some point, I think that's what's an interesting perspective. Like, I agree with the 98%. There's nothing interesting about what I have to say about the movie. Like, oh, there were cool stunts, and I love the new characters. Everyone's already said all of that. Oh, it's practical, therefore, it's interesting when you have something that is like thinking about differently about this movie that a bunch of us are raving about. So, any final things you want to? Did you already plugged everything? We're good to go.
Oh yeah, I plugged it. If you want to follow me on Threads, Twitter, whatever the hell, it's just where is it? Right there, at Griff Schiller.
Yes.
I don't know where the thing is. It's so confusing.
But thank you guys so much for joining in. Thank you guys so much for watching it. This is all about talking movies way too much, and we appreciate the fact that you stopped by. This will be over on the audio version that you can find on Apple. Wherever you listen to your podcast, there will be an audio version of this over there, and I am hoping to try my best to make this a weekly thing once again moving forward now that my internet and technology is working a little bit better, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye. I'm supposed to be ending. I clicked end broadcast, but like we're still here. So hey, everybody.